Well, Ryan Belknap, Bannock County Human Resources and Risk Management, and I'd like to start off talking about a claim that was submitted by the Family Services Alliance, and we have some folks from there. If you could introduce yourselves.
Yeah, so my name is Sarah O'Banion. I'm the Director of Family Services Alliance, and then I also have Carrie McEachran here, who is our financial extraordinaire. And so I asked her to come with me. I have a couple other folks that just stepped out, but that spend a lot of time at the emergency shelter that are able to answer questions. But basically, we're just here to kind of discuss the issue that we had at the shelter, how we can work together to resolve it, and then also make sure that we don't have a problem in the past.
Yeah.
Or in the future, excuse me.
Perfect.
So, yeah.
And so
This is Michelle Pace. She's the program director that's over the emergency shelter.
And you got another one in the back?
Oh, yeah, I do. She's from Detective Kelly Ray Golston. She is the president of the Domestic Violence Task Force and Sexual Assault Task Force that members of the county sit on, that Family Services Alliance sits on, that various law enforcement agencies sit on. And so it's sort of the community group, as you said, lots of boards, right? So the community group that's sort of thinking about domestic and sexual violence and thinking about how we can better serve folks. So you got all of us today.
Well, and let me just tell you right off, I have to admit that I didn't know this was our building.
Oh, okay.
This is the first time I've ever seen the contract. And Ryan brought it to our attention, and Christy says, "Oh yeah." I knew, but the three commissioners, when we talked about it on Monday, had no idea that that was our building.
yeah.
So I apologize for that oversight. Usually when so I'm actually scheduled to come see you next week, right? Christy sent me an email reminding me next week. And usually I try to update you around the emergency shelter, but it sounds like I haven't done a good enough job being really clear about the gift in terms of that financial support, that we kind of look at your financial support two ways. Not only that you typically give us an amount of dollars to help us with our crisis line, but you also provide the home that provides emergency shelter for folks.
Okay. And a couple of questions. One of them just got answered, because usually we can't go to a 20-year lease. Usually it's
Sure.
a 5-year lease, and Brian just corrected me on that. And then on line 3, it says the leasee agrees to provide property insurance on the leased property and thereby releases and discharges leaser of and from any liability of damage of the property of leasee while on the leased premises. Do you guys have insurance?
Yeah, so we, do you want to?
We don't have like homeowners insurance. What we do have is
Liability directors and officers
insurance on it.
So I think that was my mistaken understanding, just historically, and just sort of assuming, just in sort of the way things have been, is that the county has always carried the insurance for the building, and then we've carried the responsibility of updating the building and responsibility for ensuring what the services look like and what the repairs and things to the building. I've always sort of been under the assumption, and that's sort of my bad, as you're talking about, for not pulling that contract out sooner and really digging into that. And so in the future, I think part of the discussion we need to have, my understanding is that the county is insuring that building specifically, but we need to talk about whether that is something that the county can continue to do, and if not, then we would be adding that to our insurance plan. And I would need to come up with some dollars to be able to provide that, just being quite frank.
Well, and it says under number 7, fire or other losses in any structure shall be damaged by fire, act of God or other causes, leaser will cause the same to be promptly repaired. So under that end of it, we would have insurance on it.
And that may,
ourselves there, but they
sort of contradict each other.
And so when Ryan came and said that it was under our insurance policy, I had questions, because it doesn't actually match what the agreement says. So that's a conversation that we gotta have. Uh,
Yeah.
Who, what, and how on insuring that building, because as the leaser, you are responsible for all maintenance inside and out. And so,
Which is what we have, and I can go through some of the maintenance things that we've done. And so it sounds like we have sort of 2 or 3 things that we need to figure out for the future. This was sort of a typical, this was a pipe inside of the wall. This was something that we couldn't necessarily foresee would happen. So I
but
don't,
that's something that the insurance would cover.
it is, yes.
So-
Yeah. I haven't submitted the claim yet, but typically, yes.
On a regular homeowners or property owners, insurance on their property, it's a
Yeah.
general coverage.
And in the past, we've had claims where we've had to use Bannock County Insurance, and it's been a long time. It's probably been 7, 8 years since we've needed to use insurance to repair something at the shelter. But in the past, I believe the history is that we've either split the cost of the deductible, or Family Services Alliance has taken on the deductible. And that would be my sort of expectation, that we would pay the deductible for this, but we are asking that the county use the insurance that you have been carrying.
And I have no problem doing that at this time. I mean, and talking about you guys covering the deductible, but the contract itself, I'm gonna have legal go over, and as we meet and talk about budgets and stuff, that'll be part of the conversation, I'm sure.
Yeah. And so would it be your recommendation that we talk with our insurance agent? I mean, the building can be double insured. I don't know then if the insurance companies would get into some arguing about who would actually cover
That's where I'm
for
gonna
the
talk with
future.
legal about this contract
Okay,
and see
so that's
where-
something we need to
where,
discuss in the
what and
future.
how. Like I said, I didn't know that we owned the building, so we lease the building for $1 a year, plus we give you money on top of that, and there's no taxes towards it, and, you know, so there's a lot of breaks that are happening on this facility.
Yeah, and I actually think that's reasonable for
We
survivors.
have to
For survivors.
have the conversation as the guardians of,
Sure.
okay, what do we do and how do we protect the county plus
Sure.
the taxpayers and do the best for a facility that we know is necessary,
Sure.
so.
So how would you like to move forward? It sounds like, Brian, you'll be reviewing the contract. Sounds like we need to adjust whether, would you like to schedule a meeting?
It'll end up that we'll have, it'll be in one of our work sessions, we'll talk about it again.
Okay.
And then we'll bring you in
Okay,
and see what direction we want to go.
okay. And so what is the plan for the current situation?
The
being
current situation we
insurance?
just talked about is to move ahead with our
Okay.
insurance.
Okay,
And
So I'll submit the claim, and when the bill comes, because you guys have contracted a restoration company, you can send me the invoices and whatnot. I can help coordinate that.
okay, thank you.
So,
Okay.
The term, there's not a problem with the term of this contract, or
No.
there is?
No.
Not a problem?
No, because it's a shelter, so we can lease out to hospitals and shelters up to 20 years.
That's the carve out.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, thank you for your time.
all right, thank you.
thank you. Okay, we'll keep in touch.
Okay, thank you.
Because they're intended to house and shelter victims of violence. We can extend that.
Whatever it says. Okay, thanks.
Yeah, that's a good catch. Okay, so the other 2 items, we're gonna get a break on one, because John called me this morning and asked where the administrative services agreement
I
was.
think we can go forward on that, right?
Are you okay with it? Because,
Yeah.
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
okay with it now.
Yeah,
Are you?
I saw
Okay.
found it.
the insurance.
okay,
I
because
saw
it
a
wasn't
copy
on
of
the
it.
online, I
Yeah,
was,
That's fine, just keep.
okay.
I shared with him this copy and we talked.
Okay, so it's basically just the appendix C that
Right,
updated the dates.
I'm fine. I saw.
Okay, great. If you have any questions?
Questions? Motion?
And we're approving, what are we approving?
Jim Flynn.
Okay, yeah. Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve the Jim Flynn and Blue Cross update for administrative services agreement as presented.
We have a motion, all in favor say aye.
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 Great.
All right.
And the third item was, and I thought Scott might stick around, but for the contract that we made with the performer for last week's country concert, the manager of the performer had asked for certain insurance that was above and beyond what we currently have with our current liability. And so we kind of had to lean on Tim from Mutual Insurance to kind of help us find a provider that could meet those riders, and he came up with, after a couple attempts, a group called Philadelphia Insurance that would provide some of that special event, liquor liability, extensions to the insurance that would meet the contract request. And so I brought the invoice to you for that. And this may be something that we're going to have to do for multiple concerts, as Scott had told me that this is something that he expects to see from other performers in their management.
I wouldn't be surprised either with the liquor license and stuff.
And these will be part of just the concert expenses that will split the profit sharing if there is any, or will be covered through the revenues that come in.
Okay.
On this one, because of the time frame, Mutual paid Philadelphia for us,
Oh,
and then we'll be reimbursing Mutual on this one. I'm not sure how the next one is set up.
so we can delay the payments, Tim? Kind of like our
Maybe,
one that he come and asked the other day.
maybe.
Questions?
No.
On motion?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve this agreement as presented.
Have a motion, all in favor say aye. Aye. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right,
That's it for my stuff.
looks like Todd?
Good morning, Commissioners. Todd Mauger with Bannock County Juvenile Justice. I'm here today regarding requesting permission and a signature on the grant application for the 2023 Assessment Center Limited Longevity Support Grant that is second-year funding through the Idaho Department of Juvenile Corrections. First off, I'd kind of like to give a quick update as to where we are with the building. The assessment center, as the grant addresses some of those issues, but I wouldn't say there's really issues. The building's coming along fantastic. I don't know if you've been through it, but I think a special thanks goes out to the commission and your facilities manager and everybody at the county for taking a project that was dead in the water at one point and turn it around, and we're at a point where we'll be in the building on probably the last week of June. And so with that, the state did.
Talking about that,
What's that?
have you talked to Emma about ribbon cutting or?
So we have, she reached out a couple weeks ago to do an interview and start on that. I think, I told her like that week I was completely swamped, which I have been for months. And so we have had brief discussions about a ribbon cutting and kind of a ceremony, opening ceremony. And I'd hope maybe around the 1st of July, first couple
Yeah,
weeks
we
of
can do
July.
it after you get started, but.
Yeah, and I
So
think
that's on the agenda.
Yeah.
We need to do that. We need
yeah,
to
and I think that when, you know,
Fluff our
when,
own feathers.
yeah, I agree. And as I look at the kind of the implementation process, I'm hoping to have our intake and diversion unit in there the last week of June and start that transition. And then I've been through quite a bit of collaboration. That's another thing. I think the community, the outreach and support from community members, when you look at ISU, school district, local providers, targeted care coordinators, counselors, there's a high level of support and need for the families we work with, and those organizations that we work with are in support of it and excited for it to happen. With that said, I'll get into the grant real quick unless there's other questions regarding where we're at in the processes.
No, thank you.
Okay, so the grant deadline is actually tomorrow to get this submitted. The Department of Juvenile Corrections put forth $2 million, and when you look at the 8 assessment centers that are across the state, I think probably our share is probably around $250,000. But I'd like to kind of go over the budget. There is a concern. I don't like to request for personnel funds through grants and one-times money. School District 25 did come to me, and they were submitting a grant that they could fund after the first year, but needed $14,000 of matching funds. And so that is in the grant. I was contacted yesterday at about 5 o'clock, and they said they did not get funded in their grant. So what I'm doing is requesting that we do it. I don't necessarily feel like we should request personnel funding if they're not going to provide the match. And so in talking with Dan Kendall, there is a issue with the sprinkler system, and we may have some furniture that we could add into this grant. So I guess what I'm saying is looking for a signature. I'm going to get rid of that $14,000 in personnel and probably add another $5,000 for furniture and a sprinkler system, just so everybody's aware. If you're okay with signing off and then having me adjust things, but I don't want to be on the hook for something I know isn't going to happen, and I was made aware of it last night. So
you're gonna take the 14,000
I'll take the 14,000 out.
And then equipment, you're gonna put 5,000?
I'll put about 5,000, yeah, 5,000 for fixed, well, it'd be equipment and furnishings.
So the new amount will be 241,869?
Yep. I'm gonna write that down too.
And does that include the sprinkler thing you were talking about?
Yeah.
That includes that?
It would include it, yeah.
Okay.
Yep, it would include it. And so, I just kind of want to go down through the budget real quick so everybody's aware of what we're requesting. And it'll kind of give you an idea of the collaborations that are taking place. I think we're in the process of, in the next couple months, coming in and requesting some MOUs with some real exciting partners. The University of Utah has a psychiatric resident program at ISU, and in talking with them, there's a $12,000 cost to have a psychiatric resident in the building, but they could do psychiatric assessments, screenings, they could do med management as far as treating anxiety and depression for a lot of these kids. Right now, to get a youth into a psychiatrist, sometimes we're waiting 6 months to a year. And I think that partnership could build. I also have reached out to the Idaho State University Health Department, and they're willing to provide interns to do some clinical counseling, clinical assessments, as well as undergrad students to do some of the assessments and screening. And so we'll be working on that. But when you look at the consultant contract, that $12,000 is that year of having a University of Utah psychiatric resident in the center for a half day once a week, which I think is really exciting. And then we have $2,000. Patricia Carrig was going to do some secondary trauma training for our staff in the first year. She was unable to do that because she went on a sabbatical, and then we used that $1,500 that we were gonna. We did a project adjustment and got some other training for our staff through the National Assessment Center Association. So as you go down, there's travel. We're requesting $36,984 in travel. The state's going to require us to do two trainings in Boise and have 3 of our staff there. This is for technical assistance when we look at sustainability, putting in the Acorn system, which is their really outcomes and results system, how we're going to run our data so we can show if what we're doing is working in the community. And then there is going to be some rural travel as we're going to have satellite screening offices at the other counties' probation departments. And the county, and because we will be providing support to them, I am requesting the purchase of an all-wheel drive vehicle as part of the grant as well. And then when you get down to the other stuff, I shouldn't say other stuff, the other category, we're looking at a lot of utility payments. So the state has requested that they pay for those utilities, lawn care, power, water, garbage, there's something, janitor services, paper products, as well as furnishing and fixtures. So we have put in a lot of furnishing and fixtures. One of the fixtures is the camera system, which I didn't think about when I initially wrote the first grant, which is $39,000. And so that line item's in there as well. We're able to put in the refresh existing structures as far as refinishing, seal, and painting the parking lot as well.
So going back to your travel, the $32,000 for a vehicle, is that a Bannock County vehicle, or how is it associated
So
down the line with the grant?
So I believe Bannock County would purchase the vehicle. It would be a Bannock County vehicle that would be used for the assessment center, similar to kind of like maybe our juvenile probation cars. But it would provide us an opportunity to add another new vehicle to our lineup, if that's.
We just need to verify at the end of the grant, or not at the end of the grant, but if there's any stipulations on that vehicle after a certain time. Like health and welfare grants, we have to keep the vehicle for at least 5 years.
Okay.
With our ambulances, we have to give them to another government entity. So we just need to see if there's any strings on this, or if it's ours and we can do it.
So I believe it's ours.
Let's just follow up.
And we can follow up. Yep.
Yeah.
We'd be happy to do
The
that.
grant is going to pay for all of this stuff?
Yes.
If this is gonna, if we get awarded this grant, I think we probably need to look at possibly setting this Safety and Assessment Center as its own department.
Okay.
We had originally talked about, Matt and I think you were involved, just putting it with the other operations of juvenile probation. But due to the dollar amount and some of the items in it, I think it would be more transparent if we had it as its own department.
Okay.
Well, and that's just like the travel. I mean, just say that you're almost $37,000 for travel. If the person doesn't look down there and say, well, there's $32,000 in for a vehicle.
Yeah,
I mean,
right.
it looks like a lot of travel.
Right.
But actually, I mean, this will be a grant,
Right. It's
so it'll be its own department in that aspect.
Okay, we can have that conversation.
I just feel like like first off, I'm grateful that they came out with the second year of funding. Like last year, they're saying I don't think there'd be any more, but who's to say what the legislators are going to do, because they did kick some forward.
Well, maybe running this through the grant, they can see all the operations, maybe they'll start kicking this.
Yeah, and that's one of the components of what we want to do is be able to keep data and show sustainability. And then I think in working with some of these outside organizations, Idaho State University, I see there's a lot of opportunity for growth. And I was able to take the director of the Health and Sciences Department through the assessment center, and he had some really outside the box thinking of how we can work together to really expand what ISU is doing and expand what we want to do as far as providing those evidence-based services. That right now, if you look across the statewide, we're filling micro level gaps that are macro level gaps at the state level, if that makes sense to you. We'll just- yeah.
Okay, questions? Motion?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion, we approve the grant application as presented.
Have a motion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, thank you.
Thank you. And so,
Nikki, one more time and I'll have you escorted out of the building.
First Amendment right,
Go ahead and get security here.
constitutional First Amendment right
Not in this meeting.
of every public
Not in this meeting. So we'll go ahead and have you escorted out of the building.
The Constitution is supreme law of this land.
It's over, Nikki. They're coming to get you.
So,
Prosecutors,
so you signed off on that. I will get you, I've got to submit the grant by tomorrow. So I will get you the revised budget with those changes
Okay,
to put with that.
okay. Do you want to go down to Davenport now?
Yeah, and I'll explain it to her. Thank you.
we the people are the sovereignty, we are the public servants.
And then Todd, if you'll just also work with Mandy.
Yes, she's been great.
Good.
Let's go ahead and escort Nikki out, please.